Hello, staff and students. This year we're going to use our PATS time to provide you with some information from Deputy Zumfelde here, just regarding multiple topics. Last year he did a little bit of this for us in a setting with a couple classes here at the high school. This year we'll try to do it in segments for you that can be looked at during PATS class, just with some items that might be more directed towards you and your age group that you might have some questions about. This one's going to be about driving. If you noticed through your email, I did send out a survey with feedback, so if you wanted some questions answered during this time, you could provide those questions and we could try to ask them and get some answers for you reasonably. And so we were able to do that. Some of those will be addressed here today. As we move forward and look at some other sessions here with Deputy Zumfelde, look for those surveys that will come out through email, and if you want to provide questions related to the topic we're going to discuss, you can do so that way. So like I said, this session will be in regards to driving and driving as young people and some of the things associated with that. And for those of you that don't know, this is Deputy Zumfelde, works for the Henry County Sheriff's Department. Serves as the DARE officer in the county and also the student resource officer. He's in our district most of the time on Wednesdays, and you will often see him in the cafeteria around lunchtime or in classrooms. And some of you have shared that you know him from other run-ins also. So the first question, Deputy Zumfelde, I know this has changed quite a bit over time and just within the last 5 years, as the driving age, and then how many people you can have in the car, and when you can have them in the car and when you can't. So if you talk a little bit about that for the students.
Right. Yeah, being 16 and 17, when you have a driver's license, it's considered a probationary driver's license. So there's a couple of different restrictions that go along with that. Primarily, if you're age 16 and you have that driver's license, the biggest one is you can only have one passenger in your vehicle who is not a family member. Of course, that would, with an exception of, if you have a parent or guardian in the vehicle with you, then you may have more at that point in time. But if it's just you driving without your parent or guardian, you may only have one passenger who is not a family member. Changes when you're 17. When you're 17, you may have more passengers who aren't family members. However, at no point in time can you exceed the number of passengers to the number of restraining devices in the vehicle. So if you only have 5 seat belts in the vehicle, you're only allowed 5 passengers in that vehicle.
So if a student's 16 and they're driving in a vehicle and they have 3 people in the vehicle and only one of them's a family member, and they get pulled over for speeding, that could be in something additional that the officer could
Right.
talk to them about.
Right. It would be an additional citation along with what was the primary offense, which would be speeding in that case. You could actually be cited for 2 separate offenses. And being a juvenile with the driver's license, you are mandated, any offense you have, you're mandated to go to court for. So you would have a court hearing, and you would probably get your license suspended for a certain period of time.
And then when they turn 18, all that changes.
Right. Once they become 18, they're considered an adult, which then, instead of going through juvenile court, they would actually go through the adult court, just like anybody else would.
Okay. All right. You've been with the Sheriff's Department for a while, so you've seen, unfortunately, accidents, and you've seen some pretty horrible accidents too along the way. So I want to talk a little bit about seatbelts, and just number one, just talk a little bit about how you feel in regards to people just wearing their seatbelts while they're driving.
Okay. Yeah, with the seatbelts, for anybody of any age, it's a requirement, it's a state law. You must have a seatbelt on when you're in a motor vehicle. In my 9 years of doing this career, I've seen a lot of bad crashes. I've seen a lot of people, unfortunately, not survive crashes. Some of that directly related to seatbelt usage. There's been some pretty minor crashes where somebody has ended up seriously injured, if not killed, in that motor vehicle crash, and it all related to they were thrown from the vehicle because they weren't properly restrained by a seatbelt device. Yeah. So having that on, I feel, prevents a lot of injuries, can prevent death, which makes a pretty big deal. That's why it's a state law. It's there to protect you.
So it being a state law, if a student's driving, they need to have their seatbelt on. They get pulled over, don't have their seatbelt on. That's another one of those additional citations.
Yes, absolutely. They can be cited for that. along with, if you're the driver of a vehicle, you can actually be cited if you don't have your passengers wearing their safety belts. It's your responsibility as a driver to make sure everybody in that vehicle is wearing their safety device.
Okay. Another topic that kind of will fit in here is texting and just being distracted by the radio or being distracted by someone in the vehicle or even answering an email or phone calls.
Sure.
So talk a little bit about the laws that apply to those things.
Sure. With texting has become a big thing over the last few years, and they made some changes with the laws. It is now against the law in Ohio to text and drive, and that's with any type of communication device, like it could be a cell phone, a laptop, a tablet, any kind of device you have where you're sending an electronic message is considered a form of sending a text message. And again, that is against the law now. Very distracting. When you talk about distracted driving, anything can be considered distracted driving. Talking on your cell phone, it's not against the law to do. You are allowed to do that. However, when you're focused on a conversation, it can really draw your attention away from the road. And when you're out there traveling at 55 miles an hour, and on some highways now you're traveling at 70 miles an hour, things happen in a hurry. Your reaction time is, for every mile that you're going faster, mile per hour that you're going faster, your stopping time, your stopping distance changes greatly. So if you're distracted, something happens, the faster you're going, you're not paying attention, things can happen quick, you can get off the road, leading to one of those unfortunate accidents that we see too often.
And just speaking of speeding there, oftentimes you hear, oh, I can go a little bit over the speed limit and, I won't get a ticket or I won't get pulled over, and we won't ask if that's true or not. But, what are your experiences with speeding, especially young people?
Speeding, it affects everyone from every level, new drivers all the way to the experienced ones. People tend to go a little bit faster than that speed limit. That speed limit's there, again, because it's for the safety of everybody that's out there driving. Certain roads are made at certain speed limits, whether it be for it's a residential area, that's why it's a lower speed to make sure you don't have a kid run out in front of you. If you're out on a highway, it might be 55 because the road could have some curves. Especially when you start talking about this time of year, you get deer running out in front of you. Again, your stopping distance comes back with the faster you're going, it takes a little bit longer to stop, things can happen a lot quicker. But yeah, everybody seems to think there's that cushion, they can kind of extend that speed limit a little bit. It's not actually the case. If you're in a 55 mile an hour zone, you're traveling 56 miles an hour, you can be stopped for it, you can be issued a citation for it.
I guess just an observation on my part, I guess with this last point is, nothing really good happens once you're out past a certain point of the evening, it seems like, and I guess I just wonder, is that your experience as people are out, maybe past midnight or at 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock driving in the morning? Usually there's some things that happen then that wouldn't typically happen in daylight.
Sure. When you start talking at night, there's a lot less traffic out there. So when people are out there at that certain time of night, typically it's because they're going to or from work, doing something work related. If they're not doing that, it could be something else. It could be the criminals who are out breaking in that we're watching for. It could be people who have been out drinking, they're out driving, leaving the bars. That's a time of night where we're really focused in on traffic. We see somebody out, we're checking to make sure that they're driving how they should be. We're looking for violations really hard at that point because there's so few cars out there. We want to know what these people are up to. So yeah, being out at that time, it can be a little suspicious, especially when you're younger. We get back into that probationary license violations actually that we talked about at the beginning. If you have too many passengers, another restriction with that is the time that you're allowed to drive. When you're 16 years of age, there is another restriction that you cannot be out driving between midnight and 6 a.m. And when you're 17, you may not be out driving between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. So that's another thing that you can actually get a citation for if you're found driving at that time of night when you're not supposed to be. A few exceptions for that. If you are going to or from a school-related activity, or if you are going to or from a work-related activity, those would be some exceptions to that, or if you do have a family member with you, a parent or guardian.
All right, again, these little video clips will be information for the students and for you to hear and kind of to gather more about some of these things that directly relate to you. And I'm thankful that Deputy Zumfelde is willing to do this for all of you and understand in 5 to 10 minutes. Number one, he's not going to be able to cover everything. That's not the intent of this. And number two, some of the things that maybe aren't covered, if they come up in real life out there, know that there's things that aren't going to be talked about here that may apply to you in a situation in real life. So if you have questions, Deputy Zumfelde is around, and go ahead and ask him and use him as a resource for all of you here, because that's why he's here for us. So this will be the end of the first broadcast here that we'll have regarding some information for you as students, and some of the laws that will help you be more safe out there. All right, have a good day. Thank you.